Last time we talked about the various cryptographic technologies and solutions that enable us to implement secure communications. However, the discussion was about the different technologies themselves, not how they are knit together to implement the secure communication solutions. Next, we discussed the security technologies in context. Security is layered like an onion. On the outside are the users, how they use a computer system, who they trust, and what do they do when the system fails. Inside are the security relationships between the user and the system and between different systems. Further inside is the software. Software are all of those bug-riddled pieces of code that are expected to enforce whatever security rules we have. Looking further inside we find the theory. These are the idealized protocols that the computers use. And in the center of it all, sometimes, is the cryptography, the mathematical equations that enforce security. What we really need to understand is that security is a process, not a product. As a process, it has many components, and like any process, some of these components are sturdier, more reliable, more oiled, more secure. The components have to fit together. The better they fit together, the better the process works. Security is also like a chain, and like a chain, security is only as strong as the weakest link. Let's take a step back and talk more about cryptography. Cryptography is pretty amazing. On one level, it's a bunch of complicated mathematics. On another level, cryptography is a core technology of cyberspace. It lets us take all of the business and social constructs we're used to in the physical world and move them to the internet. Without cryptography, electronic commerce could never work. In order to understand security in cyberspace, you need to understand cryptography. You don't have to understand the math, but you have to understand its ramifications. You need to know what cryptography can do, and more importantly, what cryptography cannot do. You need to know how to think about cryptography in the context of computer and network security. These lectures won't turn you into a cryptographer, only an intelligent consumer of cryptography. To the consumer, cryptography is a shadowy protective entity, something like Batman. Kind of menacing, but on the side of justice and endowed with mystic powers. If the consumer is paying attention, cryptography is a boatload of acronyms that accomplish various security tasks. ITSEC, for example, secures IP traffic across the internet. It secures virtual private networks. Or Secure Sockets Layer, which secures web connections. Pretty good privacy and secure email prevent others from reading email that isn't addressed to them and from forging email to look like it came from someone else. These are all protocols. There are protocols for digital content protection, cell phone authentication, electronic commerce, and just about everything else. To build these protocols, cryptographers use different algorithms. This includes encryption algorithms, digital signature algorithms, and so forth. Historically, cryptography has been used for one thing: to keep secrets. Written language itself has been used as a form of cryptography. In ancient China, only the upper classes were allowed to learn to read and write. The main idea behind cryptography is that a group of people can use private knowledge to keep written messages secret from everyone else. There is a message, sometimes called the plain text, that someone wants to keep secure. Maybe the someone we'll call her Alice wants to send it to someone else. So Alice encrypts the message. She invents some transformation, called an algorithm, of the plain text message into a ciphertext message. This ciphertext message is gibberish, so that an eavesdropper will call her Eve, who gets her hands on this ciphertext, cannot figure out the plain text and therefore cannot figure out what the message means. Bob knows how to reverse the transformation, how to turn the ciphertext message back into plain text. This works, more or less. Alice and Bob can agree on an algorithm to share their thoughts. Or Chinese nobles, even though none of them is called Bob, can use their written language to keep state secrets safe from the peasants. But there are complications. First, the algorithm has to be good. Eve isn't going to look at the ciphertext message, shrug her shoulders, and wander off. She's going to try to figure out what the plain text is. If Eve is the World War II British government, she is going to hire the best mathematicians, linguists, and chess players in the country. She will stick them and 10,000 others in a secret compound at Bletchley Park and invent a computer just so she can break the algorithm and recover the plain texts. Even today, the National Security Agency is the single largest consumer of computer hardware and the single largest employer of mathematicians in the world. Alice had better be a pretty smart cryptographer if she is going to outsmart these sorts of Eves. Second, it's hard to bring people in and out of the fold. To exchange secret messages with Chinese noblemen, you had to learn how to become literate. If you later fell out of favor with the government, there was no way for them to prevent you from reading all the messages. You knew how the encryption worked, and they had to kill you if they didn't want you reading their messages. These two problems, left unsolved, would make cryptography almost useless today. You're one of the whatever million people on the internet and you want to communicate securely with 100 of your closest friends. You don't want to share a common secret language with the 100 people. You want 100 separate secure algorithms. And what you actually need is security pairwise, and so do all the other whatever million internet users. This means that you would have to invent 100 different encryption algorithms. Such is the beauty of a key. Your front door lock is mass-produced by some faceless company that hasn't the faintest idea how valuable your vintage CD collection is, but you don't have to trust them. They don't say, remember, anyone else who has the same brand lock can open the lock. You have a key. The pin settings inside your lock, which match your key, make your lock different from all the other locks in the neighborhood, even though they might be exactly the same make and model number. Actually, the example is too simplistic. You do have to trust someone to install the lock correctly and not to pocket an extra copy of the key. But this is a whole other concern. Keys solve the problem of people moving in and out of a private group. If Alice and Bob share a key and they want to let Kim Philby join their conversations, they just give him a copy of the key. If they later learn that Philby is passing secrets to the Soviet Union, they can simply agree on a new key and not tell Philby. From that moment forward, he is cut out of the system and can no longer read newly encrypted messages. Of course, he can still read the old ones, but he was already able to do that before. These algorithms are called symmetric because the sender and receiver must share the same key. The key is a string of random bits of some length. Different symmetric algorithms have different key lengths. Keys protect privacy, but they're not perfect. The problem is distributing the keys. For this system to work, Alice and Bob need to agree on a secret key before exchanging any secret messages. If Alice and Bob are smart, they are going to change their key routinely. Daily, perhaps. They need to agree on these daily keys in some secure manner, since anyone who eavesdrops on the key can eavesdrop on all communications encrypted with that key. Assuming you want pairwise security, the number of keys needed grows with the square of the number of users. 2 users need just 1 key, but a 10-user network needs 45 keys to allow every pair of users to communicate securely. A 100-user network needs 4,950 different keys. In the 1980s, US Navy ships would often sail with a full container of NSA distributed keys, each printed on paper tape or punch cards or whatever, enough for all of their communication circuits for the entire length of their missions. And it isn't enough to disseminate these keys securely. They have to be stored securely, used securely, and then destroyed securely. Alice and Bob need to keep their keys secret until they need to talk with one another, and they need to make sure that no one gets their keys, either before they use them, while they are using them, or after they have used them.